Hey, welcome. Jesse Moskal here, and this is a very special edition of the Recovery Authors Podcast with a fellow that I think we probably met 7 years ago when I went downtown to a place called SoCo, which is a co-op workspace for it's kind of a shared workspace for freelancers. And I went in there as a direct response copywriter, not really knowing anybody. And as luck would have it, Mr. Bill Grant befriended me, and he told me, a little bit how to maneuver in there. I think he showed me where the beer tap was the first day.
Which we never used as much as we should have. Like I look
Never.
back on like we should have had beer every day and we just didn't. But anyway.
But yeah, very unique workspace with beer taps going 24/7. But I did not last there. I built a home office instead. Bill, however, has I think you retain an office there to this day, or no? Are
I
you out of
don't know. We
yeah.
we moved out. We're up we're down on Calhoun Street now
Oh, wonderful.
in Columbia. So we my partner bought a building down here. So we've been in this for a year, 2 years almost now. So
Wow.
yeah,
Congratulations. I guess it has
yeah,
been 2 years since I last saw you because
yeah, yeah.
excluding random walks on at the riverfront.
Right. Strangely enough, how that happens. Um,
But
and then of course seeing you on TV.
I'm sorry.
Seeing you on TV, that was the other run.
Well, there's that. I'm really excited for everybody to hear this story with Bill because Bill's an entrepreneur, and I'm going to let him introduce and talk about his agency a little bit. But for those of you listening to the story, maybe there's some of you who have a dead end job you don't like, or maybe you're just burned out working for a shitty boss, and you want to know what it's like to become an entrepreneur and make that leap. And you're not blessed like me in being a felon, so I had to make the leap. You actually made the leap organically, Bill, and so I'm really excited to dive into hearing about all the intricacies of, especially having a family and trying to pull yourself away from that horrible addiction to a paycheck. Um,
Yep.
and I also think there's a great story behind the fact that you decided to do it when you did it. So with no further ado, Bill, please tell our listeners who you are.
Well, so my company, I have two different brands that we work with. We primarily do video production. On one side, the brand is called As Told By, and we do video production, but we also help people understand what to do with the video when it's finished. So it's kind of a marketing agency, but it's primarily a video marketing agency, and we want to make compelling videos that move people to action, but we also want to teach people what to do with those videos when they're done. And then the other brand is called Cinematography, which is focuses on wedding films. And so, um, and I started in wedding videography in 2005. So that was when I first started Cinematography. It wasn't called Cinematography at the time. It was my wife and I. My wife was a photographer, and so we did a photo and video company. Um, and then I quit my job in 2007 to do this full time with my wife
Sorry, before you go any further, so for 2 years you guys were building this up, right? And what was your job
as a
before you quit?
photographer. And then we hear anything in 2009. Hold on, so my internet is unstable. But she decided to quit doing anything in 2009. And so I had to step up and be the breadwinner once our daughter was born. And so since 2010, we were Cinema Couture for a while, and then I took on a partner in 2019, and we started As Told By. So that's kind of how we got to here. So I'm certainly an open book on the quitting the dead end job to start a company idea. If you want to talk about that, I mean, you tell me what direction you want to go.
Well, as discussed before the call, I think even now, my own business, I sometimes take on a job In fact, just before this call, I had to turn in a piece of copy that I was working on, which basically is, a website that's meant to sell a product. And even though these guys pay me a ton of money and I'm very confident in what I'm doing rationally, just before I hit send to share my words with my client, I get this really horrible feeling. It's like, is this any good? Is it, am I a big, is this a joke? Like, what's going on? Can I do this? And
Well,
so let's talk about
yeah,
that.
I am. I must say I am wholly uneducated in the practice that I do. So like, I'm not educated in video production. I'm not. I didn't go to film school. I don't have any formal education. I don't have a business education. So my degree is in computer science. Before I was a computer science major, I was a music major. So like, I don't have any training for what I'm doing. I don't have any certification or anything. On top of everything else, I started as a wedding videographer, which, if you talk to any filmmaker, they'll tell you that it's the bottom of the barrel. Like, that's the worst you can do. Like, God forbid I have to go be a wedding videographer, and you hear jokes about that, the filmmakers. So, when I kind of branched off from doing only wedding videography and started doing commercial video. And this was 2008. So in 2007, when I quit my job to do this full time, all we were doing was weddings. And really and truly, the breadwinner was my wife. She was the photographer, made good money at it. The video portion of it was really just an add on to the photography. But in 2008, when I started doing this, I didn't know what I was doing at all. All I could do is just somebody gave me a job outside of weddings, and I went, okay, I mean, I could probably do that. I have cameras, I have audio stuff. Let's figure it out. And I feel like we did an okay job at that stuff. And I think what I've done, and I was all by myself, at that point, I had just bought every DVD that was available back then. There was no online training for anything.
No YouTube.
Yeah, no YouTube in 2007 and 8, and certainly nothing valuable online.
Yeah.
And so I bought every DVD I could get my hands on. I practiced. I showed up at the opening of an envelope to make a video of it. And we just, I just hustled, and I mean, it's like I got a lot of lumps along the way. I mean, it certainly was not, it was not an easy road to take. And then I think it was probably 2011 or 12, I got my first big client, which was like, I got a client, and I won't say who it is because it's not fair to them, but it was a client that had been referred to me by a friend of mine who was in the wedding business. And he said, hey, this guy can make videos, let's do it. And I did a $8,000 project for a client. And I just thought this was the coolest thing that had ever happened. Turns out, for that $8,000, I had to travel back and forth to Atlanta. I had to go to Georgetown. We went to, North Charleston twice. I mean, it was a lot of money. It was a lot of work for the money, but it was an amazing learning experience. And I really got the idea, the value of it. And all these years later, I mean, it's not that many years later, eight or 9 years later, there's still times where I am heading into a pitch for a project, or I'm up against a traditional company who has, all the training and all the, experience making actual films or whatever. And we feel that, like, I don't deserve this because I'm not trained, or I don't deserve this because I don't have a certification and whatever. And I'm going to tell you, it hasn't lessened very much. I do know now, though, it has lessened in one way. I do know now that we've been effective for people. Like, we've done a great job for people, and people have been very happy. Yeah. And that helps so much with that imposter syndrome. Just say, look, maybe I'm not the one that should be judging this. let the client judge it, And so I think it's much easier to get through that specifically when you're not thinking I don't deserve it because I didn't earn it. And especially because I'm a wedding videographer, right? So I started in that, and I'm kind of always a wedding videographer. Does that make sense? Like, if I had a client come to me and they say, "Hey, we have this comedy sketch idea we want to do for our national TV spot," I would have to go, "I'm probably not your guy. I'm not your guy to do a comedy sketch. I've never shot dialogue between two people. We know pretty well that what we're focusing on is things that things that are happening. We love including things that are happening in the videos that we do, and so a lot of what we have done in wedding videography for so many years informs what we do for companies, because
Right.
all we're really doing is telling the stories of people, and so telling the stories of people for a wedding, or telling the stories of people for a company or a nonprofit or an association is so similar. And we kind of work to specialize in hitting those very important emotional points that people have, that really make a connection between people. And that's what we do well. And we do that well because of our experience with weddings.
Yeah, I really love that. So uh kind of to recap, because I think your internet cut out for a second there at the
Oh man,
beginning.
sorry.
That's okay. At the beginning, so of course it's 2007, and that's right when we had a big crash in the financial markets,
Yeah.
real estate, mortgages, and so forth. So nobody had money, 2007. And what kind of job were you working then? Before you,
So when I quit, I was doing IT for a point of sale company. We did touchscreen systems for restaurants, and and that business was pretty strong even then. There's always another restaurant opening up, and so they would buy a system, and even if they weren't open but 3 or 4 or 5 months, they still paid 40 grand for the system, and it all just went down with the ship. And so I left that job to do this job in 2007, and then the whole world fell apart in 2008
yeah.
financially. And so not like last year, but I mean in a different
Right.
way.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but at the same time, in 2008, people still got married. Wealthy people were still wealthy. Um, but those $100,000 weddings became $30,000, and the $50,000 weddings became $10,000, and the $10,000 weddings went away.
We're free.
So
Yeah.
you know, so it was just a matter of figuring it out, and like, so what we did, not necessarily as a response to the economy, but just to keep sales going, is we figured out that people value photography more than they valued video,
Hmm,
for weddings, at least in 2007 and 8.
sure.
And so we made the photography more expensive, and we made the video less expensive.
Nice.
So it kind of balanced out what we were selling anyway, but it just made the photography more expensive, and they were okay spending more for photography than they were for video. And we just kind of positioned it in such a way that it made it more palatable for them to buy stuff.
Right. Yeah, that way you get them spending the same money as before, but it felt
And they
different.
just feel like they're spending better money because they're spending more on photography than they are on video. But then, on the commercial side, I started doing commercials for like Watch Fox. And it was like I just was on a job with somebody doing something, and was that a bug?
That was a fly. I
Oh, um, like right in the camera. That was crazy.
never saw that before.
Um, I thought it was some kind of special effect or like some kind of zoom thing.
You haven't seen
Um,
it.
But I ran into a guy shooting a press conference for Watch Fox, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys ever hire freelancers?" And he
Mhm.
said, "Yes, come up to the station and see my boss." And so I did, and I started shooting news. I started shooting like high school football games. I just like anything I could get my camera on,
Mm.
I shot it. And so could I make $100? Could I make $125? I took jobs for $150. I mean, I was just taking every job I could get at the time, just because I knew that, I was learning, first of all. I mean, I was getting my feet wet, right? But then also I was just trying to make a living, just trying to figure out how in the world to do this, Um, and with weddings, I mean, we were relatively low on the budget totem pole for weddings anyway.
Yeah,
And that's, who survived 2008 is the very, very high end, the very, very top, and and kind of the bottom. The middle sort of got squeezed out. And 2008 was about the time that digital photography took over from film, if you can
ooh,
believe it took that long. Um, and it was really in its infancy even up until 2006 and 7. And 2008 was when everybody was digital, and and so then that made so that the barrier to entry was pretty low to get into photography. And so people started, that was when the influx of the photographers kind of came in.
I knew we'd
um
talk about this. Yeah, yeah. All of a
yeah,
sudden, your market's flooded with 100
saturated.
low price offers.
And what's very interesting about right now, about 2021, is that what happened in 2020 is that everybody's mindset got reset to think, if I'm going to be talking to people in the public about my business, I need to be using video to do that. And so the having it as a luxury, which is where it was in 2019 and before, got reset. And so we're talking to so many more people now that they feel like they're behind. You talk about imposter syndrome from the other side. They feel like they're behind. They feel like everybody else is doing this and we need to do it too. And not just virtual events and things like that we certainly did our fair share of last year,
Hmm.
but it was also, we needed to have done this before now, and now we need to tell people about this thing. We need to communicate this message to people. And the clients we've been working with for years are still doing what they were doing. They haven't even really ramped up what they were doing. It's just everybody else is catching up to those now. And
Right.
so it's a very different environment than 2008, where, you know, well, and I'll tell you the other thing. In 2008, the only two ways you could really use video, as surprising as it sounds, is DVD or television. And so, we put video on websites, but you had to actually code your own Flash player and
And
do
it
all that
probably
stuff to
loaded slow, right? I remember.
slow down everything. And the internet was
So
slow
easy to
anyway.
forget. So easy to
Yeah.
forget that used to be the reality. You tried to look at a video and you're waiting for it to load. Yeah.
Yeah. And really and truly, what I did was just take all those years and learn, beat my head against the wall, learn my craft, and by the time the world caught up with us,
Mhm.
then we were ready, you know, and and I always say that the one advantage to beating your head against the wall is because it feels good when you stop. And that's what it was like. It's just going through a painful time so that when the painful time's over, you really appreciate the difference.
Three
And
things I
so
take from all that you just said. Three really good points, I believe. Number one was you were in a situation where you saw an opportunity where there might be some work for you, and so you made the ask.
yeah.
I've been in countless situations where I should have talked to somebody and I should have asked for, whatever. And then I didn't, and who knows what could have happened if I had. But those times where I do go ahead and just get my ego out of the way and just be like, all right, let me humble myself and say, if you got anything for me. And then you did that, and then you got these $150 jobs. Some people listening would be like, wow, that'd be awesome, I'll do that every day. Other people would be like, yeah, that sounds horrible. um, but the ask was number one. Number two was willingness to do anything that was even remotely related to what you wanted to gain mastery in. And yeah, those $150 jobs gave you all sorts of different things that you were able to build on and eventually stand on the shoulders of in doing what you do today. The
Yeah.
third point, of course, I think is probably my biggest one, and that's hustle. You clearly were just saying yes to as many things as you could and taking on all opportunity. Um, I recently told a coaching student this the other day. I was like, I probably need to go back and apologize to a bunch of people, because when I started my career as a copywriter now 8 years ago, I came home, I had $33 in the bank. I moved into an apartment. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I moved into my apartment, paid deposits and all that stuff. I had $33 in my bank in 30 days to come up with rent money. So I had to hustle. Like, it was like 7 days a week, like 14 to 16 hours a day. I didn't have anything else to do except figure out how to write and make money. And thank God I did. But it was freaking hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's I mean, that's the reason I need to apologize, because I've undersold that. It was really freaking hard. Like, the people that make it in any entrepreneurial adventure, I think we probably undersell ourselves in terms of just durability.
And you miss it too. It's weird. So like you miss that climb when you don't have to do it anymore, you know? And so what I find myself doing every couple of years is just going, where can I climb to from here? Like I don't ever want to sit back and go, aha, we did it,
We did it.
because I know when I was just starting, I saw companies that did that. I saw especially photographers that did that. They love doing stuff like that. They would go, aha, we have figured out the only way to do photography. And you know what I mean? And I just think, God, I don't ever want to be at that point. I don't think I want to always have somewhere to climb, and I'm almost kind of as attached to the climb as I am to anything else. I mean, it's great to work with good clients and to have a lot of work and to be busy and to have a crew to help me, like I've got now. Like I don't have to do all of the practical work like I used to, but I miss the climb. And so, what ends up happening is I'll end up putting myself out. I mean, we're doing it right now. We're doing it right now. I mean, Wednesday, Tuesday, what's today? Friday. So Wednesday, we shot our first TikTok campaign for a client. Okay.
Nice.
So I've never shot TikTok campaign for a client before. We've done them for our company, but we haven't done them for anybody else. And I was upfront with the client, like, look, I think TikTok is the right direction for y'all. You don't have one, so let us take it on. And it might fail. I mean, it might just not be a good idea, and we just don't know at this point. I mean, we're gonna get it started today. We're gonna start posting on TikTok for them.
Awesome.
But
Awesome.
it's something that I'm putting that out there, because if we can make it work in this case, then I can duplicate what we did here and make it work in other cases, and then we can make it valuable. And so, I think being able to climb like that is so important. And this is what keeps us from. I mean, it's why I didn't buy an insurance franchise, or
Mm,
like I'm not an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? In that way, I don't want to just make money.
right.
I love the conquering of it, and so the imposter syndrome helps me um, be the underdog.
Mm.
And I love being the underdog. I love being underestimated.
You
And
are the underdog in the TikTok videos right now. Yeah,
right?
no doubt.
Hey, listen, I'm not in them, right? I'm not in
Right.
them. But listen, my TikTok feed is a lot of me, right? It's a lot of 40-something-year-old guys playing guitar, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think it's definitely an interesting avenue, and frankly, we could be making beautiful 16:9 videos, all day long. But what we're doing is we're going out to a client site, we're shooting on a phone, because we think it's appropriate for them.
Right.
Um, and so they're trying to attract 18 to 25-year-olds to work for them, and so we feel like 18 to 25-year-olds are on TikTok. So we got some 18 to 25-year-olds to be in the TikToks and talk directly to the people. And we feel like that's the best solution, but it is way outside of my comfort zone.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's good to stay outside the comfort zone. I
And then it
know
becomes
then it
and then you got to
becomes the
find
comfort
other,
zone, and then you got to do something
yeah,
else.
right.
You got to do something else. I do remember one day, Bill, working at SoCo, and I don't remember why I never took you up on this, but you used to invite me. Do you know what I was gonna say? You used
Go
to say,
ahead.
huh?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You used to come up and be like, "Hey, man, let's just take the camera out and start shooting and see what happens."
Mhm.
I don't know why I never took you up on that. If you ever offer me again, I'll drop what I'm doing and come do it. But I think there's like a like a curiosity, and it's something I've always admired about you. Is this, you have this curiosity for new things and for potentially strange or unusual things unfolding. So like
Yeah,
that,
definitely.
the opposite of that is people who want security and they want stability and they don't want new things. I post a little bit on Facebook now and again. Somebody just this morning was like, I just want things to go back to the way they used to be. Like,
Saw that
no,
post.
it's
No.
impossible. You know.
Well, because listen, every year changes, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't always change as radically as it did last year. Things change pretty radically last year,
Yeah.
but things change every year, right? Um, and the world in 2021 is not like it was in 2017 or 15 or 16. And, you can't, it wouldn't be anyway. It would just probably be less radical, but it wouldn't be the same regardless. And so I think we've got to always, the one of the things that I always try to do is not ever just, and I'll tell you what, I was talking to a client this past week. If this had been 2016, I would have done this TikTok campaign I would have done on Facebook, because Facebook would have been effective in 2016,
Right.
right? I had a video in 2016 get almost 300,000 views,
Wow.
because that's what Facebook was in 2016,
Yeah.
but it's not anymore. So what am I supposed to do? You want me to cry? You want me to write a poem about it? I gotta find, you know what I mean? I gotta find, where are they now? Like, if they're not there, where are they now? And and the world is gonna change. And sometimes for the better, sometimes not. But there's nothing we can do about it. And, I just, we just worked with a group this last week whose entire management team was quarantined because somebody got COVID.
Hmm.
And the conversation comes down to, nobody did anything wrong.
Right.
It's just the world. So, we'll figure it out.
Let me
But
ask you. So
you know,
let me ask you this. Let's say, for instance, there's somebody listening to this program, and they're like, you know, maybe it's, I mean, it doesn't matter what the business is. Maybe they've got a full-time job. Maybe let's say they're working at a restaurant,
yeah,
and they're making all right money because they've been there a couple of years. So you've got this guy who's maybe he's gotten a couple promotions or a couple raises. So
yeah.
that's, you don't want to walk away from that and open a lawn care business or whatever the case may be. But what do you tell to somebody like that who's thinking about making the leap?
I have a very difficult answer to that question. Okay. Because what I want to say, being a dreamer and a romantic, what I want to say is, screw it, just go for it. Right. That's what I want to say. But that's not the answer for me. The answer for me is that before I quit my job, I paid off all my debts. So I was debt free completely.
Nice.
I had 5 months of expenses saved in the bank. Um, I had enough business that I knew I could carry myself at least to the end of the year, and I had a cushion. Um, and so, I think if you're, and I didn't quit my business until my business got difficult to run while I was doing a full-time job. So all of those conditions were in place, and I had a 2-year-old at home.
Mm.
that did not care whether I had a job or not. Didn't
Ooh.
ask. Never did talk to him about my job. But I had a 2-year-old at home, and thankfully my wife was still working, and I didn't like my job. I didn't like what I was doing for a living. I didn't like the job itself. No, so I wasn't going to take that job somewhat at some other company because I just didn't like the work. Right? I didn't like the work I was doing. Um, Now, when I quit, I had not just health insurance paid for by the company, but I also had a company cell phone and I had a company car. So all of those things I had to contend with, like on my own for the first time in my adult life. I had to buy, I had to get a cell phone, I had to get a car. I had to get these things that the company was providing for me.
Mm.
But I'll tell you, in the 14 years it's been since I quit my job, I've never for 1 second regretted it. Never. But it's not been always, secure. I mean, we've gotten more secure over the last couple of years, but it's not always been very secure. And so the hustle had to be there and I had to have the fire for it. And if I started disliking what I do every day, I've got to go in and just a few minutes and make edits on a video that we're about to put out. If I wasn't still excited to do that, at the opportunity to make something great, I would never have gotten to this point.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. That's actually a really good point. So if you're thinking about quitting your job, make sure you're doing what you're doing in your side hustle is a passion. And the best way to measure that, of course, I think, Bill, feel free to correct me, is so to give you an example, my wife Jerry, she's been a librarian for some 6 or 8 years. And when she comes home from work, she used to, she's not working now that we've had her child, but when she came home from work, she needed about an hour to unwind from her work.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, for me anyways, that's kind of the mark of a bad fit. If you do your work and then when you get home, you don't want to hear any noise, you just want to unwind and you need time to unpack what just happened, where you were spending the better part of your life doing something you do not like.
Yep.
In contrast, I think, Bill, I speak for you when I say, when I can go from my job right to an interview, I can go from this to that. I don't need that downtime. I don't need to process what's happened because I love what I do. I jump into it all the time, weekends, nights, early mornings. I mean, jumping out of bed at 5 o'clock to go to work definitely is a sign that you love what you do.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I think there's all of those things like, and I don't remember who said it. It's in one of the books that I listened to, but you have to love the practice.
Mm.
Right? You can't play the sport to win games. You need to love practicing.
Ooh.
And so that's a huge deal. If you don't love practicing, I could sit in my office over here and tinker with cameras and try to figure out what it was that caused that thing that happened the other day. I think about it all the time. I'm sitting on my porch at night sometimes watching camera reviews or watching breakdowns of scripts or I mean, it's something that I enjoy the practice. I enjoy getting it there. It is not just when we get a great video. When we get a great video, when we make a great video and the client loves it and we put it out and everybody appreciates it and actually does the job that they wanted it to do, that's awesome. But that's not why we do it. Well, why we do it is because we love doing it. It
Yeah.
is the process.
Speaking of books, I'm reminded of a great book my little brother Daniel gave me by a guy named Phil Knight of Nike fame.
Yeah, Shoedogs.
Yeah, do you remember towards the end, after his company went public, like the whole book is about his struggles, like going to Korea or wherever, buying like 200 pairs of shoes and trying to get them shipped back to America and sell them. Yeah. And it's a horrible story. Like there's all kinds of pain and difficulty. And then when he sells his company, or excuse me, when he takes it public, and him and all of his closest employees become millionaires and they can buy anything in the world. all he wanted to do at that point was go back and start all over again.
Yep. Yep. And I think it's amazing that up until 1980, you know, Phil Knight was getting a credit line so he could buy enough shoes to sell for that month. Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think all that stuff is just awesome. And I love biographies of guys like that. Like, you know, I read the Zappos guy.
Yes. Yep.
I was on a shoe kick there for a little while, I guess. I read the Zappos guy but he was a tech guy. He wasn't a shoe guy. He was a tech guy. And in the first couple of weeks of Zappos, he would get an order for a pair of shoes and he would go down to the shoe store and buy them and then ship them.
I believe they had a famous incident where they were helping people order pizzas on their customer service line.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, it's honestly, I mean, that type of stuff is really amazing because you can see where, because look, you know, I'm not in this to dominate my neighborhood. I'm in it to dominate the world, right? So it's important that I understand what billionaires do, because I want that mindset, you know, and so I think it's super important. But yeah, Shoe Dog is great because I feel like Phil Knight was a clever guy who stumbled into something and then just loved it, just loved the climb, you know. And I think that's what you got to love. You got to love the climb. It can't be the top of the mountain. It's got to be the climb.
it's scary. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And I think you just got to make sure you're climbing the right mountain.
Ooh, man,
You don't want to
right?
get up there and go, oh crap, this wasn't the right mountain.
Yeah,
You know,
once you get over the trees, you're like, oops.
oops, man. You know, and that's where I was headed at my computer job. I was headed up the right. I was headed up the ladder, but I was against the wrong uh, building. You know, and
Yes.
so that's really the challenge, is that, you know, and I think loving the practice is the way you know whether you're headed the right way. That if you ever achieve it, I mean, I don't have anything to achieve, right? I'm just kind of keeping on practicing, right? There's no top of the mountain
Hmm.
for us. And so, you know, I think it's important to just keep sharpening the spear, you know, just
Well,
keep.
that's something I wanted to ask you. So yeah, you say that, but what would be if you could do anything in film? Like, what
Yeah,
would be the capstone to Bill Grant's career?
I would want to make a music documentary. Um, I mean, if I had a choice of anything, I would want to make a music documentary. And I'm not sure what I would make, but I feel like there's so many great, because that's really, you know, my when I got into college, that was my major. I was, you know, that's been where my heart is for a very long time, is music. And really and truly, when I got into this, I wanted to make music videos, which I think is hilarious. But at the same time, I wanted to make music videos and get paid for it, and that's hard. And so, you know, it's interesting how that works. But I would love to make music documentaries, and I'd love to go out and follow a band on tour, you know, and talk about the ups and downs of it, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I think that would be an amazing project to take on.
That sounds incredible. I know I love to watch those. Even I think I saw one about Travis Scott recently on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was just spectacular. I love that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah.
And the Bee Gees one that just went on Amazon Prime is incredible. Like, if you don't know much about the Bee Gees, it's very cool, you know,
Yeah.
to look at. I mean, I love watching music documentaries about musicians I don't like. You know, I mean, I just think it's so cool to just learn. You know, and so I've always loved the idea of recording music live, and I think the magic of live performance is something that I hope isn't lost, you know, over these couple of years where we're trying to figure out how to stay safe, you know, that we don't lose live performance. Um, And you look at even like Limp Bizkit at Lollapalooza last week. I mean, I saw so many people talking about Limp Bizkit at Lollapalooza. It's because they were so excited to be on that stage, and you could feel every bit of their energy coming out. And I don't like their music.
Right.
I'm not a fan. And I loved watching them play because they were just into it, you know?
Yeah, man, it's so true. But I mean that happens across every industry for me. Every once in a while, I'll come across a waiter who was born to be a waiter, and they just do such a
Yeah.
bad job. It's super exciting to find people that are truly passionate about what they do.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
if you so I guess that brings me to the point. It's even if you think you found what you're passionate about and you're doing it, let's say you're doing it as a side hustle and you still got your main job, you will feel like an imposter, even if it's what you were meant to do. So that's not a sign that you should pull back and reassess
Right.
things. But
Yeah.
this is something that even people like Bill Grant with two businesses.
Yeah. Let the audience judge.
Mm.
So try not to judge yourself. Let the audience judge. And the audience will be honest with you. If you like the thing that I always had, I mean, I had imposter syndrome as a musician. I would go out and play piano at a restaurant, and I knew I wasn't a jazz guy, and they came to hear, Sinatra or whatever, and I'd play Pink Floyd and Aerosmith, and they were like, "Hey, wait, that's weird." But I would go, you know what? Even if there's a piano player in that audience who can hear that I'm not doing very well, as long as they don't come over and tell me that, then I'm good. You know what I mean? And I'm the guy playing. So you could do it, but you're not doing it. I'm the guy doing it.
Right, easy
Right?
to criticize. Yeah. Hey, that reminds me. I wanted to excuse me. I'm glad you brought that up. I want to thank you for doing those live concerts last year.
Oh,
Yeah, for those who aren't friends with Bill Grant on Facebook, I recommend you become his friend, because during COVID last year, one day I'm just scrolling through my feed and all of a sudden there's this concert in Facebook. I mean, this was back when before this was really a thing. Now everybody does it, but you guys
yeah.
just that was so cool, man. That
I
really
got I got I think I got 15 people on one song. We did We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions by Queen, and I had a different band playing one song than was playing the other song, and it was just like it was so cool to be able to just because we were all look, the problem with musicians is they're so busy. They're hustling constantly, right?
right.
And so if I call any of my musician friends and say, "Hey, let's jam," they're like, "Well, sorry, I don't have time."
Yeah.
Right? But all of a sudden last year, everybody had time.
Everybody had time.
Everybody had time.
Yeah.
And so, rather than buying an Xbox or a PS5, I was like, I'm just going to go through like what song would I just want to play with my friends and just do it because nobody's stopping me and who cares, right? And so it was a lot of fun. And I mean, honestly, February, I contacted some people because I had some ideas. I was like, my idea engine
Doesn't
was
stop.
going. Yeah. And I was like, I called some people and just everybody was just, sorry, bro, don't have time. Or, like I would have a guy that said, one of my best friends, Richard, and he's a phenomenal bass player. He's traveling all the time now because he can again
Good.
and working and all this kind of stuff. My friend Marty, who played drums with me on a bunch of things, Marty's back on tour now. He's in a band and he's on tour. And so I just nobody has time to do it now. And so if I was thinking about anything from the quarantine that I miss, it's my musician friends being able to do songs with me, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I wish I could do it again soon. And it'd be cool to get some of those guys on stage and actually play for a crowd.
Ooh, yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. Yeah.
Because a
So,
lot of those guys, the crazy thing is, a lot of those musicians that play with me, I've never played with them in real life.
huh.
So it's only that we've done that on Facebook.
Wow.
And as much as that felt live, what happened was each person recorded their own piece privately in their own house and then sent it to me, and I put it all together in an edit. And so it would be so cool to actually get some of those guys together and play in person, you know.
Cool.
But
That would be cool.
we'll,
I'll be there if you do it, man. Let me know.
all right, I'll make an announcement. Me and you will still be on Facebook. We'll get that announcement.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That'd be great. In fact, I haven't even really done anything like to celebrate. I guess we can't celebrate the end of COVID, but
Not yet.
I haven't really done anything, yeah, to signify that it's over yet. So I don't know.
Yeah, but the busyness is a thing that our whole society is going to have to contend with at some point. That people are just obsessed with being busy, and there's got to be a solution to that problem. And I don't know what the solution is, but it's, for because the things that light your soul up are the things that you do when you're slow, not the things you do when you're busy. And so,
It's true. It's really
yeah.
well said. So,
So
in conclusion, I want to be respectful of your time, Mr. Grant.
yeah, you're fine.
If a listener wants to start, I mean, I don't think that your situation was quite average. I think you had an extraordinarily good setup. Now that I've heard all the details, you had a wife who was already an entrepreneur and who had already made the leap. So your life partner is doing the thing that you want to do.
I will tell you though, I had never done it before. And when I did my first video, I literally went to Best Buy and bought a camera off the shelf. And, and I walked around the wedding with this camera. I had 3 tapes because I could only afford 3 tapes. They're $1 a piece. So I was like conserving.
We're
'Cause I
talking
already spent 60.
VHS.
No, they were mini DV,
Okay.
but I only had 2 batteries. So there were times where, I had to plug the camera into the wall, or find an outlet,
That's professional.
I didn't have a tripod. I didn't have audio equipment. I just bought a video camera. I was like, all right, well, let's try it. And I dumped all that to a VHS tape because this would have been like 2002 or 3. I dumped all that to a VHS tape and gave the bride the VHS tape, and she flipped over it. She loved it. And so that's what hooked me, because I was like, I know this is bad. I know this is really bad.
Right.
Like, I am
By
not
my standards.
right. Well, whatever. But I mean, like, but they loved it because it was her on her wedding day, and she just ate it up, And so I mean, listen, my wife being a photographer was helpful,
Right.
but it was only helpful to a point. And in 2003 and 4 and 5, the video cameras were terrible. They were not like they are now, where they are about as good as you can get. I mean, everybody's walking around with a great camera in their pocket. But it's so anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interject that point, but
I'm glad you did. I'm really glad you did. And it might have sounded harsh, but what I wanted to make I wanted to make the point that we are, like, for me, like, I also had a brother who had already made the leap. My brother in New York, Benjamin, he's the one that taught me how to do everything. He's the one that smuggled Dan Kennedy books into the prison I was in Thailand. So
wow.
I had somebody out there. And when I came home, he was off doing his own thing, and I started mowing lawns, and I was trying to write, but I wasn't getting any progress. And I reached out to him, and he eventually agreed to kind of tutor me. So my journey, I guess, in that sense, was much like yours, where I had somebody to do a little bit of hand holding. But yeah, you're right. It still felt like a very big leap with no safety net, and scary as hell, lots of adrenaline, lots of fear. But I think ultimately the benefits it's 100-fold,
Well, the big highs are better than the big lows, so you're always doing that.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, I found a mentor too, and I think mentoring is important. I found a guy that was doing what I wanted to do in our local area. And again, just called him up and said, hey, look, I want to learn, put me to work. And he just happened to need people at the time that I called him, and I got to start working for him. And I learned a lot of the basics from him,
Hmm.
as far as like what I should do in my business, and all that stuff. And he always impressed me because he had a roll of cash that he carried around, and there was always this roll of cash. And every time he needed something, he would like peel off 20s, and give it to somebody. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's baller. Like I need to, I don't
I
want to be that guy one day, so.
used to have a guy in my life like that. Yeah.
Yeah, just like if only I could just peel the cash off.
Right. But no,
That's
that's
how we
a
don't.
terrific point too.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
a
Oh my God.
mentor, find a
Yeah.
coach. But yeah, ask people, hustle, and look for experience anywhere you can find it. Sometimes you have to do it for free or cheap.
Yep.
It's worth it.
Yep.
It's worth it. That's
Yep.
awesome. That's
All
awesome.
right.
Well, Bill, in closing, I'll just say, guys, if you're local to Columbia or South Carolina, you've probably seen Bill's work on TV. I know he's done a lot of really good work for nonprofits and profits alike here in Columbia doing commercials. You might even catch he and I out on the street recording stuff randomly at some point in the future here. I don't know. We'll definitely be on mountain bikes together in the near future. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
Bill, I know you're a father. I know you've got 2 children.
Yep. Yep.
Right. And then what are their ages?
17 and 11.
17 and 11. Cool, man. That makes everything so much more worth it. Best decision I ever made in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You're just getting
congratulations
started.
to you, man. Sorry.
You're just getting started.
I am, but I've got a 15-year-old, well, now 16-year-old stepson.
Oh,
So
cool.
I
Okay.
got to jump in a little bit deeper than some, I think, initially. So but yeah, we're started and finished
My
already.
17-year-old's at work right now, and he's trying to figure out how to start a business.
Oh wow.
So that's
What
how
a
that
great
goes.
legacy to share, man. That's terrific.
We'll
That's super
see.
cool. That's super cool.
I told it, I said, look, man, you got a lot of time to fail. You got
Right.
a lot of time to fail before it makes any difference, so take the chance right now. Cause I mean, he's got no debt cause he's 17. So I'll make, just
Yeah.
take the chance,
And I think
so.
that's the big reason a lot more people don't make the leap because they can't pay off all their debts. Their job is that shitty. It's just, they can't pay off their debts. They can't save up. Maybe they don't have a good family relationship or maybe too many
Yep.
kids and nobody to help. So there's a lot of reasons, but anyways, the bottom line is, definitely want to have one of encouragement and take a calculated risk if you can. I think Bill's best advice in those cases is for somebody, if you're thinking about doing it, try to decide you're going to live 6 or 12 months without sleep, basically, and work your side hustle when you get home from work. I
Yeah.
think that's the safest way to do it. And when your side hustle exceeds your daily income, then you make the switch. And I think that I don't think I'd do it any other way.
Or if
Unless
you,
I
or if you
had,
don't have the time,
yeah,
if your time's all taken up with your side hustle. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think that's how I'd do it if I had to do it over. So,
Yeah.
and just plan on sleeping after you get there.
Yeah. There you go. I'll say too, Jesse, if anybody listening wants any mentoring, or I mean, if you want to talk to me, I don't have coaching. I don't have a coaching program or anything like that, but I'd be happy to talk to anybody if they just want to talk it out. So,
Wow.
feel free to put my contact on, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody that would like some encouragement.
That's very generous, Bill. You're a class act, man. It's been a pleasure to have you on today. And again,
Yeah,
if
dude.
you want to find Bill Grant, check out the show notes below. Bill, really a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for sharing your time
Yeah,
with us today. It's an honor.
absolutely, man. You have a good one.
All right.
All right. See ya.